To start with. Thank you. I don't like that woman's
I
voice. I'd
know.
rather it was
We have
John
to do it
Cleese.
now.
I know. Oh, really?
Yeah, I contacted Zoom.
So, and you can introduce yourself in a sec. So, welcome. My name's Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz. I am so chuffed to be hanging out with my friend Christine Page, who has been an education and an inspiration for decades. And I remember the first time I actually met you, Christine, was College of Psychic Studies. It might have been the 80s for the launch of what was the first book to do with doors?
Well, it probably was The Mirror of Existence, but Frontiers of
No, it
Health
was
was my
Frontiers
first.
of Health. That's the one.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
my God, I love that book so much. And I was there for the launch.
Oh my goodness, that is a long time ago. That
Yeah.
was 1990 when that book came out. So thank you for that.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
and you've been an inspiration since. And how many books have you written and how much work have you done? And now I think, is your speciality working with women and women's, I don't know, issues is the wrong word, wisdom, development?
So yes, I'll introduce myself. I've had 9 books out. The last 3 very much focused on women. I always want to say that I was brought up, first of all, with a lot of esoteric teachings. I was brought up amongst psychics and healers, because often people say, well, how did you get into that side of your life when you had also gone into medicine, which is what I did. So I want to say I, first of all, was brought up with wonderful men and women healers, but a lot of feminine energy. And my mother came from Scotland, and her mother, grandmother were all involved with being the wise women, what they call the Fae women, the ones who could see beyond the veils. And I think that I was very lucky to have such a background, because I've only ever known strong, beautiful, feminine women. I went to a medical school that was also mainly set up for women, and also my high school was all about women. So I've never seen women being weak or not empowered. And most importantly, I've also seen them all having a powerful man around them who loved them so much and respected them. So I've only ever known men who honored the feminine in all her faces, whatever was going on, and was willing to be her sacred warrior. So that's my background. And I think that as a doctor now of over 40 years, I've worked in obstetrics, gynecology, pediatrics mainly, and then I went on to general practice, and then I went on and started homeopathy because I realized that we had so much more to offer, and obviously that was my background. But then I started teaching and writing because I realized that I didn't just want to give out pills or treatments. I wanted to educate, to inform, to help people to develop who they really are. And that's really my focus, is helping someone to become whole. And clearly, and I think many of us would agree, most of my clientele has been women more than men. We see that in the workshops as well. And I think it's because women are constantly looking to transform, to change themselves. This is part of our nature. But I also was very saddened that so many women didn't know who they were as women, didn't understand their body, didn't like their body, didn't want to be a woman, or felt that the pressures that were put upon them were so great. And really, what I started to realize, that the shift happened about 3,500 years ago around the world. And when that shift happened, a lot of what it was to be a woman, and a woman who was empowered and enjoyed her energy, was suppressed. And therefore, I say that we have very few female role models in the world, because it's almost 3,500 years ago since we've seen that energy where there was a equality between men and women, not men trying to be women or women trying to be men, but more each accepting and acknowledging and respecting their gifts and being respected. And I think that's what I really want to put across, Kenny, as more of anything, is we don't need men to be women or women to be men. We need each to stand up in their own power. And for me, women had lost their focus. And in truth, what I've heard from men is, when women know who they are, the men will know who they are. And that's really why I've focused on women so much.
I wonder what happened 3,500 years ago. And also, just to say that for me, an authentic man can be masculine and can be feminine.
Mm.
And it's about the masculine and the feminine. And I would say the thing that we have that's different is our hormones. Um, Other than that, I love the way, exactly as you say, that it's about the individual. How masculine am I right now as an individual? How feminine? Do I even need to think about it? As long as I show up in truth, present, and connected. Um, the reason I think I was um, called to call you is since lockdown, so what, a year and a half or whatever, I've been holding daily men's groups online, and dozens upon dozens of men have been obviously with their partners, with their families, and in a very different situation, with nowhere to go. Everyone's been kind of like locked down together, and they've really got to know who they are, and they've really got to know who their families are, and they've been trapped together. And maybe for the first time, really appreciating what each other's going through and what's up. And I would say, I don't know about the female side of this, but when a man is in fear, then a man can instantly turn into a little boy, being scared of what's wrong with me? How do I fix this? What have I done wrong? Am I going to be abandoned? And with all the intensity of being together, there have been issues that men have taken on about themselves that actually don't have that much to do with them. It's not about you. There's a lot more going on. So I wondered what more is going on. And I'm craving information about how to navigate all of this and actual facts about what's going on, because I've heard of so much misinformation. And then the Davina McCall documentary's been all the rage in the UK. I know you're living in America now, and you haven't seen the whole thing, but there is a lot of fear. There is a lot of information. There is a lot of denial. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of confusion, and there are a lot of relationships breaking down. So save us.
We've certainly all been in a melting pot, there's no doubt, or a pressure cooker. And, you know, part of, I think, what the lockdown was about was that, is not just looking at ourselves, but looking at our relationship or how we relate. And I think that many of us, and my husband and I actually both work at home, so we've been at home all the time. But, you know, this might be the first time that couples are actually together because they've understood they had somewhere to go. So I think the pressure cooker of actually being in the same home and working from the same home with children often around you was really a pressure cooker of something needing to be understood and changed. And I feel that, you know, yes, it is our hormones as women and men that are different, but I want to say that those hormones greatly influence our psyche. And it is a psyche, you know, it's almost like a chicken and egg, which comes first, because it's almost like I only know what it is to be a woman. And you might say, well, but you've got your masculine and feminine. Absolutely. But the energy of my estrogen and my progesterone is so strong that that totally influences my psyche and how I behave. And I want us to understand that men don't have that estrogen and progesterone. I mean, that's just the basic facts.
Yep.
We both have testosterone, and testosterone in men obviously can influence their strength, their physical strength, etc., and their mental strength. But women also have testosterone to the same level. And I think
To
just
the same level.
to the same level that
I
we
didn't
can
realize
actually
that.
enhance. And so this is why I want to really just start this, is that what has happened to women, and as I mentioned, many things have changed in the mental state of women being told they need to act more like men. And so I call it the mini man project. And so what happens is, this is why I'm saying it's chicken and egg. when I'm being told, be less like a woman, be more like a man, it also influences my hormones. And so what's happening for women is women are literally switching on more testosterone, switching off the effect of their estrogen, their estrogen, progesterone. And so what we're seeing is more infertility. We're seeing more what we call polycystic ovarian disease, which we never used to see so much of because the testosterone levels are going up. And we know at the same level, men won't have as much, will never be able to develop the estrogen and progesterone. But there's another hormone called prolactin, which is the sort of nurturing hormone that happens. And what we know in men is that when they're around their children, i.e., if they're staying at home with their children to take care of them and the wife is going out to work, his prolactin levels will go up. So it's more, it's nurture and nature. And so, what we see is the prolactin is actually the hormone that makes you sleepy. It shuts down your testosterone. So men are becoming more feminized, which is great. But there's a level where it's not the hormones, it's how we're seeing ourselves in the world that's affecting our hormones. And I'll just stay with testosterone just for this moment. Testosterone for a woman is the get up and go energy. It's the sexual energy. It's the firing up of our energy, which is the same in men. So that when women go through their menopause, where we see a lot of changes, obviously, in the estrogen and progesterone, the testosterone stays the same. So a woman's sexual urges are the same. But the other part of why she wants to have sex changes. Because sex isn't just about wanting to have it, it's about a relationship, it's an intimacy. And that all gets stretched when women go through the menopause. I hope I'm not jumping too many loops there, but I'm saying is these things are going to change us.
What do you mean it gets stretched? In what way?
In the sense of, so I now need to just step one back. I'll just describe women's energy. So women's energy is very much like the moon. And again, we could say, is this my DNA? Is it my double X? Is it my hormones? But women relate much more strongly to the phases of the moon than men do. Now, we could put that down to estrogen and progesterone, because there's definitely a pull on a woman's hormones as she goes through different phases of the moon. And obviously, one thing that every woman does on this planet is have a moon cycle. And if you think that things have got left out of the agenda, most women never talk about their own moon cycle, menstrual cycle, period. So women might talk about it when they have their very first one. And I've sat with thousands of women who have told me about their first period and maybe the next few. But women do this for over 40 years.
And they don't talk about it with each other.
And we don't talk about it. And I can tell you, we never talk to other women about it. It was only when I was writing my book that I started talking to my girlfriends and learned about their periods. And we've been doing it for 40 years. So we don't have a 10-year celebration. We've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years. Mainly because we've been taught that the only reason to have a period is to have babies, which is so untrue. So this, if you think that men have had, bad information, misinformation, women have had it extraordinarily bad. So most girls are told once they start their period, good, you can now have babies. Now be careful, don't have sex. That's about it. And for a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old, it's like, what sex? Well, maybe you do know, but it's like the last thing you're thinking about. But sex and periods have just got put together and they're bad, or that you don't get period, don't get pregnant. It's nothing to do with understanding how your body now is being primed to work on a cyclical level in a similar way than the moon works. So there's a waxing moon, a waning moon, and then what we call the dark moon, which is the phase we're in actually at the moment. And the same happens with us women. We have a phase where we call it our estrogen phase, when we're very creative, very lively, we want to get out into the world. Then we have what we call our fertilization days or days ovulation. And then we have this area where we become more, we want more sex, we want to be more social. I mean, it doesn't have to be sex, it can be want to be out in the world. But then just before our period, we need to withdraw and become away from people, men, our partners, our family, so that we can then, during our period, go into the most powerful time of letting go of the old energy and being ready to birth the new energy at the beginning of the next cycle.
So it's like a cleansing.
It's
like
a cleansing, but it is a cleansing, absolutely, Kenny. But it's like saying, why do we have winter? You know, we have winter so that we can birth something new. And if I may just continue that part, that let's stay with a period. I know I personally don't have them because I'm beyond that, but I want to talk to every woman about this. Let me say every woman. The first 3 days of a woman's period are the most powerful times in her life. The 3 days of what we call the dark moon are the most powerful times of a woman who doesn't have a period. So that if a woman's having a period and it's regular, those first 3 days are her power days. If you don't have a period for whatever reason, even if you're on the pill, or like me, I'm postmenopausal, I take the 3 days around the new moon. It's the day before the new moon. I always have to just clarify this. It's the day before the new moon, the day of the new moon, and the day after the new moon. Why do we call them the 3 dark moon days? You can't see the moon. The moon isn't in the sky. So they're 3 days. These 3 days are seen so powerful in most indigenous races that they will not let a woman go anywhere near any sacred instruments or go into an inipi, a sweat lodge, because she is so powerful, she will break those instruments. She is so powerful because she is, as you say, cleansing energy, not just for herself, but for her family. She's then reconnecting or connecting to the powerful creative energy. And then on that 3rd day, she births a new idea or a new dream. So what the indigenous people, the Native Americans would say is, on those 3 days, especially that first day, a woman is so powerful that a man previously her husband would go to her and say, look, I'm ready to let go of this energy. Would you take it into your body, transform it into blood, and release it for me?
So it's like a purification too.
A purification of not only herself, because that's where the words came in, oh, she's unclean. No, she's not unclean. She is cleansing. And they're very different. She's releasing. So I'll just give an example. My friend who is Native American, she had 5 sons and a husband. And she taught me that these sons and husband would come to her few days before her period and say, look, I'm finished with this energy. I'm having this problem at work, and will you help me? Now, her job wasn't just to take on the problem. Her help was, what are you doing about it? What have you learned from this situation? What are you going to take from it? And then I'll take the old energy from it. So this isn't just about cleansing a difficult problem. This is about saying, you need to do your work. And when you have, and you've reflected on it, and you've decided what to do, I'll take your old energy. And so the womb itself, the uterus, is the place which will not only transform a few cells into a baby, but transforms energy or emotion into blood to be released. And that is so powerful that no man would ever want to stop that process. So she would say, in that time, so she takes on her family's energy, but she would not make food during that time, because literally in touching the food and then feeding her family with the food, they would be taking all the things she was going to get rid of for them back into their body. So during those 3 days, a woman would not touch the food that she was then going to feed her family.
Is that what's referred to as the red tent days?
Yes, it is. It's the same as the red tent. Now, I've spoken to a lot of women about this, and they go, yay, 3 days of not cooking, and you can make it as long as you like. But those 3 days are important. And you might say, well, this is all just tradition. But once a woman realizes how powerful she is in this time, rather than weak, my mother used to call it the curse. you know, oh my God, it's that awful time. And then they would see that a woman, in many traditions, a woman would go to a place outside the family home. It might be a tent, it might be a room, it may be the red tent, as you described. It wasn't because she was unclean, it was because she was so powerful, they didn't want her in the house. And it would usually be about around water, so she would do a lot of cleansing with water. But it was really so that the more empty we are, the more we can pull in new energy. That's purely what it is. That if we're full of old energy, whether our own or other people, we can't pull new ideas into ourselves. So, you know, we just get flat. We don't have anything. So I'm really, I think you can hear me saying, I want every woman to understand that whether you're having periods or whether you're not, on that third day, we give birth to a new idea. Women are born with 2 million eggs, which is really 2 million ideas. And by the time we get to teenagers, we've got about 200,000, but that's still a lot. So every month, even beyond my menopause, every month I birth something new. And I want every woman to realize it's not about just birthing babies. It's what is the new idea that you're birthing. And the way we do it is to empty ourselves of the old ideas, release old identities, and draw in those new ideas.
What I love about what you're saying is it's connected to self, connected to nature, connected to the family, connected to awareness of where the family, maybe even the community are, and what needs to be let go of. But it's not, here it is, you deal with it. It's, I'll deal with it, and you can cleanse it once I've done my work. What I don't like about what goes on is the shame, the hiding, the unclean, the inconvenience, all of that nasty Western demonization.
And this is why, so if I can keep talking to your women and your men, what women have a tendency to do, and again, you know, I'm not going to say it's hormones or whatever it is, but women are more magnetic, men are more electrical. Now, you can say, well, is it hormones or whatever? Let's just call it in that. So women have a tendency to draw into themselves the emotions and the problems of other people. They do it much more than men do. And the reason that women do this is that women also have much more of an insight into the potential of somebody else. And so you and I were talking a little bit about the crone. I think I'll come back to that, but let me just stay with the idea that women have the eyes to see what someone's potential is, the ability to clear away the energy that is not serving that potential, and literally the womb to bring about the transformation into that potential. And we call that, you know, we call it love. I love you so much, change. Okay. And that, I think women are not aware of how much we say, I love you, now change. And as my husband said, is he bought the package. He doesn't want me to buy a change. And I think this is a real misconnection between men and women. Women are always wanting to change people. Men are always wanting to fix and keep people where they are. And I think if women and men can just understand that different psychology. So I, as a woman, have to be really careful not to keep trying to change my husband. And he has to accept my need to always be changing. Okay. And if, you know, men will often say, or a masculine part of a woman, what do I need to do to fix you? And that fixing is often to keep someone or bring someone back to the level where they were. Where's that woman I liked? Or where is she that I married? You know? And women need to get off the situation that they're always thinking that they're there to change. And they use words like, it's only because I want you to be happy. It's only because I love you. It's only because I want you to reach your full potential. That isn't our job, women. It may be that I see what your potential is, and I can offer you the chance to say, if you say to me, hey, Christine, what do you see my potential is? but I need to stop going into action mode where I see that's my responsibility to change you.
I so feel the change and the fixing. I've so seen it and witnessed it, and the tension that it can bring. And to put it so simply, to enable space for both and the understanding and acceptance of, rather than the tension and the, if I can't fix this, or if I'm lumbered with this, then what are we going to do? Which is tragic.
Yes,
Tragic
it is
in relation.
tragic. It is, and I think that, again, my experience of talking to thousands of women don't understand they're doing this. It literally is such a psychic event that I have to, so I say to my women, and again, I'll say it to men, but first, do you understand you are psychic? And they go, no. And I go, do you read energy? Yep. Do you read that your husband needs to change? Yeah, that's being psychic. So these subtle energies that men and women both have, but women do need to acknowledge that they are reading their potential and literally going into transformation mode without ever acknowledging that's what they're doing. So first of all, I say, look, what is it you're seeing in your partner? What are you feeling? And one of the reasons that women, and again, I appreciate men do the same, but this is a woman's thing. Women want to change someone because they're picking up all the emotions of someone. And what they're saying is, I can't believe you'd want to sit in these emotions, so let me change you. So women are uncomfortable with someone else's emotions. And again, I understand men are as well, but truly, I'm going to say it's much stronger, I see in my women. So what women will do is, I'm feeling uncomfortable in your emotional state because you'll seem unhappy in the job you're doing or what you're doing. So let me get my vacuum cleaner out and clean all your emotions so you can change and become what I see as your potential. And what I'm saying to women is, put your vacuum cleaner away because that's not your job.
Listening to you now, I'm at the back of my mind listening to so many men that have shown up with, she wants me to change, she has grown and she has changed, and I've been left behind. And I know, and she has said sometimes, that if I don't grow into myself, or I don't catch up, or I don't this, that, and the other, then the worst, whatever that is, might happen. And so many men have been quite happy accepting life, working, they have the routine, providing, protecting, whatever it is that they do, and maybe missing a trick, not just with their growth, but also with their needs. It's all about this rather than, who am I? Why am I here? What are my needs? Where is my community? Very often. And one of the tragedies with men is, school friends are provided, uni friends are provided, workmates are provided, and then maybe they move or something happens or they have children and they don't notice that they're not making space for their community, for their connection, for their growth. And then it's like, well, the only men I see are my children's friends, fathers, who I don't actually like very much, but it's convenient because blah, blah, blah. And then they're isolated. Meanwhile, life has carried on and they've been busy. And what you're saying here really fits with that, with suddenly I need to catch up. I need to change. Have I missed the boat? How do I do me right? And that turns into, who am I? Who do I no longer need to be? And how do I show up to life?
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, I so love talking with you, because it's not, I love hearing so much about the men you've been around and what you're seeing. Because I do believe that for many men, their wife or their partner is actually their most intimate connection.
Yeah.
And so when she is choosing to change, then, where's my friend? I mean, that's, women are more likely. You talked about the fight and flight response, really, when we get stressed. What we know is a fight and flight response, but again, the estrogen side of women, when there is a lot of stress around, it causes women to befriend, to seek a friend, to call someone.
Mm.
That's our estrogen. Whereas without the estrogen and in a fight and flight response, the testosterone just says, let me be on my own, let me find my own way.
Mm.
So again, yes, it's hormones, but women are not always looking for a partner, a male partner, who is going to be their friend, because they tend to have friends amongst women
Mm.
or with men. I mean, it's not their most intimate partner. So in what you're saying, then of course there's this other phase that women will tell me about, which is he just wants me to be his mother.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that role is one where tell me what to do, tell me how to do it. What is a mother? A mother kind of nurtures our creativity. It's not just taking care of our emotions, but it is that energy where a woman will pull away and say, I don't want to be your mother. I need you to be my sacred warrior. I need you to step up,
Yeah.
to be my partner. And Kenny, this is not as simple as we both know, because I'm often having to say to women, you are now taking so much of the masculine role because that's what's now being seen acceptable, that women are stepping in to take the masculine. I say, where's the room for your partner?
Yeah.
You need to allow your feminine to come in. And then my women, again, but the women I'm just thinking of women I know very closely, will say, I don't have a role model of a man who stepped up for me.
Yeah.
Therefore, I have to keep my masculine strong because I can't allow my feminine to be hurt.
Mm. Mm. It's that safety.
Yes.
And
Yes.
an unsafe man, or a man who is sensitive to, I might be humiliated, I might be criticized, I might be nagged, for want of a better word, I might be withdrawn from, I might get the cold treatment, which is abandonment. Split second can turn into a scared little boy.
Yes.
Who then needs to do anything to get out of trouble, to be safe again. So what do I need to fix? What do I have to do? What did I do wrong? How do I? And it's absolute terror.
Yes.
So as you say, where is the man holding a safe space to enable things to pass?
Yeah. And thank you. And, Kenny, it's often much simpler than we think, and I know I feel for the men when it's like, well, give me a hug, but you're not giving me the hug in the right way, or, make me a meal. Oh, you should have made something different, but I would say to men, it is that feminine. Women are looking to see if they can trust a man to nest into. And again, doesn't matter if you're talking, if you only have female relationships, but the fact is, we're talking about a father figure here, and it's interesting. We're talking just before Father's Day.
Yeah.
We're talking about what is the father figure that was there for you that you could nest into? What does it mean as a woman to have a father figure? And I think it means the same for a man. What was that father figure to you? And we can't move away from, well, it doesn't matter what because these role models are essential to us.
Mm.
And I think for us, it's, it is about was there someone there who I could support, that supported me in a way that allowed me to feel safe.
When the men show up with this issue, very often we talk about the only adult who should be there to take care of your vulnerable child. Don't offer it to your woman or any man or any teacher or any authority, but surely take a breath and feel the child safe inside. Because as you do, then the man in you is present and able to be present to your partner, to yourself, to the world, able to meet the world. And that way there is a solid, stable available man. And the other biggie is when the woman debriefs about what's going on, just unpacks. It's so ridiculously common. And my God, I used to do this all the time, to say, this is how maybe you should, or I will, or, trying to fix, as you said, men or scared boys need to fix. And I learned to say to my wife, Angela, do you want me to silently listen, or would you like me to do anything? Would you like me to fix it? And she'll say, no, I just want you to listen. And that's where I keep the boy in me safe, and I'm present. Present with what is. Accepting and holding doesn't mean smothering and fixing. For me, it means being solid. And just what?
I love it. I love it, because in both ways, because once we say I need to fix, we're actually criticizing. And so when I'll say to Leland, probably in the same way, I need to talk, he knows is keep your mouth shut. I need to talk. Because if he comes in and says something, I'm already shutting down because I'm feeling criticized. And I think women do the same to men. When a man wants to share something, a woman needs to say, I'll be a silent listener. And because it's not about, let me change you. We all want to fix, we all want, but there's a patronization, a shutting down. And in one of the teachings I give is that when we share, whether it's male, female, I say all we need to say is, I see you, I hear your heart, I feel your feelings, I know who you are, and I love you. And that's all we need.
Worth its weight in gold, to be present here and now, with acceptance with what is. So, during changes, are there any tips that you can give more for the men of how to be not just available to their woman, but available to themselves, available to needs, and more able to hold a space to enable whatever needs to happen?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I want to make sure we cover it all. One of the things is just what we're speaking about. And it's the hardest thing. What I wanted to say first of all is, when we're with our partner, if we can say, and this might be with anybody, I see you as a mighty soul who actually knows their way through this. It might sound a lot of words there, but when I'm saying, instead of saying poor them going through this, if we can start with the understanding of, oh wow, I am so lucky to be with you, you know what you're doing, or I respect you even though you seem to be going through a lot of trauma. If we can start with the admiration of someone, and that helps us to really stay, I think, present to them, just what you're speaking about in the witnessing. Because I think that I just wanted to come back on that. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing worse that when you're sharing yourself with someone, that the other person goes into their own drama, their own trauma. And I think that if we, as you said, can stay present to saying, lucky me for being able to be here, to be listening to you, in a sort of objective way, I think it gives far more than saying, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you, which almost then, oh, now what have I done wrong? Yeah. It's literally, I don't know if you've had that done to you, Kenny. It makes me just shut myself down. I stop sharing, because it's like, oh, now it's all about you again.
Yeah.
So that ability to stay present, has to be not from a place of I'm just staying present. It's like, wow, aren't I lucky to be witnessing? Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you for being here. And then to recognize almost this, to ask. It's okay to say, what would comfort you? How can I comfort you in this? And especially because women are scared of being comforted. I'll often use words, how can I nurture you? how can I give you pleasure? And you might have different words. It's not,
mm,
you don't use the word love. It's
mm,
like, how can I comfort you in this moment?
mm.
And it
So it's
sounds
more a
simple, but it would
serving.
be a word to use.
Mm. So it's more a serving, cherishing being.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
And I defy any man or woman not to want that,
Yeah.
you know, and to maybe, as in any relationship, say, already know what are those comfort moments that someone needs. It
Well,
might be reaching out a hand. It might be saying you love them. It might be going, as my husband will do, go and turn the bath on, knowing I need to go and rest in a bath.
mm.
You know, we need to have those conversations.
So here's one from left field, totally throwing the cat amongst the pigeons. And this might be a minority, but since lockdown, I've worked with over half a dozen men whose women are basically get away from me, stay away from me. And some of them have been having affairs,
Yes.
and the men are so distraught. And, you know, it's phones and texts and disappearing, and even saying, I need space and I need to explore my relationship, my sexuality, etc., with another man. And the men are, well, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to do this. What about our life? What about our children? And so it goes on. And they have been absolutely petrified, not having any idea how to respond to this. And with some of these women, it might be something to do with my hormones. With some of these women, it's don't even talk about or blame my hormones. It's got nothing to do with any of that. So there are these very tense, relatively impossible situations. Is this something that's common? Is this something that you can say anything to?
It's very common, and it's common because of lockdown. We're suddenly being faced with someone who we possibly didn't want to be with for quite a while.
Mm,
And to me, it's this lockdown has brought honesty to our relationships. It hurts, it's horrible, but we're not living. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think that the sad part is where we've lost respect for our partner, or we don't want to be with them, and that might be the words. But I say to Sib, do you like this person? Do you actually respect this person? And sometimes going off and having an affair or many affairs is just a running away from being honest with the person that you're living with.
mm,
Now, that might say, I know I'm being, well, this is what I hear a lot of. It's like, do you really hate this person enough that you would do this and hurt them day after day by having an affair, rather than saying, I think our time is over, or not? And this might be, I know then someone will say, oh, well, it's, you know, I've got children, I've got a mortgage, I've got it. All of that's true. But to live in a relationship that's so destructive because you're willing to have an outside relationship and bring all that energy into the home, whether it's through text or physically or whatever, that's not a relationship.
mm.
And I know we're talking at that level, Kenny. It's devastating. You
Yeah.
might have been there, I've been there, but boy, I'd rather have had the truth than someone bring their energy, someone else's energy into my home, and then me having to deal with that.
And could it be lockdown or a phase or something that needs to pass through a big change?
Well, but you know, anybody who's been through or is in a marriage or been through a marriage breakdown or not broke down, it's a moment of truth.
Mm,
And I think if nothing else is happening at this time, it's truth. And I think it's not a bad thing for men to say, you know, you are very difficult to live with. I
mm,
don't know what to do. I don't think that's a bad thing to say.
mm, mm,
Again, not taking it personally. Now, will women, and more men, but women, when, you know, there are so many reasons why a woman or a man may have an affair or not want to have their partner around them. But it really is saying to us, why are we in relationships in the first place?
mm.
I think that there are many relationships that only got together because either convenience or children or, you know, parents. This is not the way. You know that in your relationship.
Mm, mm,
I said to my husband before we met, I want you to honor respect, and support me. And love me is fine, but I need you to respect and honor me. And the day you don't do that, we're finished. So I'm saying, where are we not respecting each other? That's the worst thing we can do. It's got nothing to do with masculinity or femininity. It's two people living in the same home. Now, if a woman, what happens in a crisis situation such as lockdown, we're living at home or we may be uncertain about our job. All of this comes to, we start to say, who am I? What am I? What am I doing? What am I doing in this relationship? Where am I going in my career? And we may take it out on the person we're living with or on our family. But the crisis may be in ourselves, just what you've spoken about. My crisis of identity. Lots of people are changing jobs or losing their will to want to do a job, and then they take it out on people at home. So I'm trying to say it's not just hormones. This could be happening in your 20s or 30s. But you can say, look, I will give you space, but actually there is a responsibility to this relationship.
What has been amazing for me is more often than not, the relationships do break through.
Yes.
And I feel that they have needed the space to break down in order to break through, in order for both people to show up as who they really are.
Yes.
Maybe with new boundaries, new maturity, new truth, a new outlook, a change in direction, perspective. And interestingly, the questions from the man have been, should I go and find him and biff him on the nose? Is that what she wants for me to fight for her? Or should I back off and let this take its course? Or should I threaten her? Or should, and it just goes on with the doing and the fear and the expectation. And what I'm hearing, I think, from both of us is drop into the truth and let it fall apart personally, and then see about how it is. And easy for us to say, maybe, in a way, because we have no children. I cannot imagine what this might be like for people who have children. Totally different situation. And everyone I've worked with in this situation has had children. So it's way beyond my experience. But my God, what these people have been through.
And I always have done. And, I feel that our world is wanting more honesty, more respect. And I absolutely agree with you. So there's a piece where everybody's floundering at this time. Who am I? What am I doing? That was the cocoon that we've been in. And as I say, there's a common time where we think, well, if I had a relationship, if I don't know, had more money, if I traveled, I'd be a happy person. And I think when someone's in that space of spinning and then the partner needs to stay solid, but they also need to respect themselves. And that's why I'm saying, I don't believe that we do need to own the fact of this is not acceptable to me.
Boundaries and self-respect.
So 3,500 years, everything changed. And what happened was that prior to that time, women and men would live very much in communities, and a woman might have several partners as a man might have several partners. But that only happened with everybody knowing what was going on. So a woman wouldn't be hiding. If you're having to hide a relationship, there's something wrong. You don't feel good about it.
So it wasn't sordid. It
wasn't sordid. It was normal. You had several partners. That was the way it was. And then mainly because of matrilineal inheritance, in other words, 3,500 years ago, everything moved down from the mother to the child because she knew that she was the mother, but she couldn't be sure of who the father was. And that's why matrilineal inheritance happened. And the men weren't getting anything. She was just passing everything down through her lineage because, as I say, she could be sure of who the mother was. And that's really why in the Bible you start to hear this statement, which is, okay, we'll have no sex before marriage. We'll only have one man, one wife. And, because the men, that was when patrilineal inheritance came in.
So it was all about property, chattel.
Yeah, it's always been about property. And so now he could say, well, I know I'm the father because she's not having sex with anybody else and she's never had sex with anybody else. So all that property went from the women to the men, and that was always what it was about. And so instead of having communities, we had harems. And so harems were, I'm the king of the castle, and now the women can fight each other for the right for their children to be educated or to be taken care of. So 3,500 years ago and less time, women started to compete with each other. And so women competing with each other meant that I've got to make sure I'm the favorite to this man. And I am saying in my teachings, if you want to go and have sex with my husband, come and ask me first. Maybe I'll say yes. But I'm saying we would change the world overnight if women would stop cheating on other women. And that is not acceptable. And men play into that, which is to say, my wife doesn't understand me, you do, blah, blah, you're more whatever. All that so-and-so. And then the last thing I'll put in on this is, I know from my Native American teachers, once we share fluids with someone else, we keep that emotional connection to that person for 3 years. Mm. And that's why I'm saying is, I know men and women who will say, I know they've been with someone else because I can feel that energy on them. Mm. And I'm saying on an energetic level, there's more than you go and sort yourself out. It's more of, be careful what you're bringing into this family home to the children, because it's not out of sight, out of mind. Children are picking up on this. And we have a responsibility to those children to keep our energy as clean and clear as we can and respectful as we can do.
Very interesting what you said, because it reminded me of this morning. My inner DJs always give me information, and they were playing Inheritance Makes the World Go Around the World. And this is all about inheritance.
Right.
And then after I was distracted by the inner DJs playing that, my mind went into hormones are taboo. It's the thing that isn't being talked about. And now that there is more, I mean, this whole thing with Divina has brought things to the fore. And I personally am very interested in facts, in information. I'm also horrified at the misinformation, the misdiagnosis, the antidepressants, the labels, and the harm that's all doing. And people are going, HRT, not HRT. Am I going to get cancer? Am I going mad? What's going on? How do I manage this? How do I hide this? How do I keep my job? How do I keep my status? How do I keep my husband? How do I stay young and beautiful?
So let's talk about all of this. So let me go just to the pre-menopausal women, the 40 years. I want to just reiterate this cycle. So any woman who is, and you know, there's so many apps at the moment, moon apps and apps you can have, although be careful about the information you're putting on them, but just get a normal calendar and be able to work out the cycle. And instead of saying, oh, it's your hormones, you can say, I'm in the phase of creation, I'm in the phase of nurturing, I'm in the phase of reflection, I'm in the phase of releasing.
So I'm not a victim to this, but this is the energy that I can harness for my growth, for creativity.
Exactly. And if you understand me as anybody living with me, then we can all live in harmony. So in the, you know, just to speak to women, after your period, we go, and men, but after the period ends, we are the most creative. And this is a time to go out, have energy, make new projects, etc. Then we come to ovulation, which if you have a 28-day period, which is the same as the lunar cycle, then it usually is about 14 days after the start of your period. That's a time where your egg is released. So if it's not, the egg's released, but it's like me releasing a book out into the world or an idea out into the world. It's like we birth. That's the time of birthing. So what we do is we go, okay, I want everybody to know about the project I'm birthing. So for the next 7 days after the ovulation, we network. hey, do you want to hear what I'm doing? We're social, we're out there in the world. And it's also a good time to have sex if you're wanting to get pregnant. You're very sexy, you're very attractive, very charismatic. Excuse me, I was getting excited. So those 7 days after you ovulate are the most attractive time in a woman's world, okay? Then the 7 days before the period, and this is why, 7 days before the period, we've gone out into the world, we've planted our seed, we've got it nurtured, we've got it fertilized, but now we're actually coming to a phase when we need to be more reflective, more introspective. That's the time where women have premenstrual syndrome. And over 60% of women have symptoms then. If everybody can understand this is not a good time to start a project, this is not a good time to socialize, this is not a time to say, hey, let's have all my friends in. This is a time to say, I need to go quiet. I need to spend more time on my own. And if the family can understand that, doesn't mean she's going to hide away, but that she's not going to be out there doing so much. Everybody will get calmer. Because there are two, as a homeopath, we treat premenstrual syndrome in two ways. One is the woman who says, I am so exhausted taking care of everybody. I just need to get behind a smoke screen and have my own space. And we give them the remedy sepia. The other women are the women who feel cornered, trapped, and they start spitting at everybody. And we give them lachesis, the snake venom. So if women, it's not the partners or the family's problem. It's the fact that in our society, we expect women to be 24/7, exactly the same, like men are, all the month. And if we could respect that this is a time where I need to go within, we would reduce the amount of ice cream eaten or snarliness or everything else. And we need to be able to say to our bosses, sorry, you're not going to have that project, or I'm not going to write up that issue. I'll do it after my period.
I would love the day when that is normal.
Yeah, I know.
And I wonder whether there's any space for that in most organizations these days.
And unfortunately, I hear from other women that it's women who are mean to women. That's again that competition. That if a woman says, I'm not feeling like it, it's the woman boss who gives them the hard time. So I've met more men who are sympathetic to my needs than women, And then in those times, the days of the period, there are days where it's not a good time. It's not a good time to have sex with your partner because you're literally doing this cleansing. You're very powerful at that time. It's a time to go into your creativity. Maybe have, say, well, this is a time I'm going to, I don't know, do some more painting or do some things that are for me. Nurture your own needs. And again, it's not a time, this is another big issue where women are having to, maybe they're hairdressers or massage therapists or nurses, they shouldn't be touching other people because they're doing this cleansing. Now, we can't change that. And if someone asks me, you can, use sage or something to clear your energy. But it would be wonderful if a woman could say, actually, this isn't a great day for me to do cooking because I'm on my moon time. So that's the menstrual cycle.
And irrespective of whether it's menstrual, premenstrual, menopause, etc., I have no idea about this. Are there pills and potions and things that are sold to restrict this or deny this or somehow fix this or avoid this? I've heard so much about misdiagnosis and what do you call them, antidepressants and things like that, which has got nothing to do with anything as far as I know.
No, so obviously a lot of women are on the pill. It gave us all freedom, but it actually took away our feminine. So we call it flatlining. So when you're on the pill, or now more and more young women are having injections or patches where they literally are saying, don't have a period. And that to me is a travesty. It's unethical, where doctors are saying, hey, you only want a period so you can have a baby. So let's just take away your period. that is flatlining someone. That's making them, like, as I say, a 24/7 male. And what women are then doing is they're again, we come back to hormones. Even if you put a hormone in, something in their psyche is saying, this doesn't work for me.
Mm.
So I get women who are kind of battling against the hormones that are being given to them. So there's that problem. I've got women who are young women who are being put on the pill at 15. Oh, look, your period's a problem. Let's just put you on the pill now. You have an injection. You'll never have a period, or you have one every 2 years. That's appalling. I've got young women having their uteruses taken out. You don't want period? You don't want children? I'll just take this. I'll sterilize you. It's like, oh my God. I mean, this is crazy making. So I ask every woman who's got a child or a grandchild, teach your girls that this is your power. This is the power of creation. Men cannot do this. Again, I'm not saying men don't have creative energy, but men are more creative when they're around a woman who is doing this cycling, this cleansing, this connecting. That's why, men with a woman behind them, she does the cleansing, the connecting, and helps him to be inspired.
Behind every man.
Yeah, and it's true. You see it in so many great men are great women. So there's that cycle I think we were talking about. I forgot. Then the estrogen phase is the phase where, as I say, that 14 days of creativity. The biggest issue is the second phase. When the egg is released, we produce progesterone. Progesterone is the nurturing, supportive energy. And what I see, and I had the same, I want to tell you, I had really difficult periods and a really difficult menopause. So I'm not talking from a place of, hey, this was easy for me, what's your problem? But what I knew, I had poor progesterone in my system. And most of the problems with premenstrual syndrome is low progesterone levels. Again, we're talking about nature or nurture. Because I was someone who said, let's start a project, because that's what everybody loves. What are you doing now? What are you up to? What are you going to write next? But nobody gave me the time to actually nurture my dreams. So I was always being told, get on with the next thing. And I realized, and I see this in so many women, where they're, and men, we're only seen as successful if we're doing something, if we're growing something. But actually to say, well, actually, I've planted my egg, I've released my egg, now I'm just sitting back. We see it in pregnancy, women going to 9 months without ever giving themselves time out to nurture what they're doing. Because we don't see that as successful or a valuable asset for the community. So encouraging your women, encourage yourself to slow down in that week before your period. But also, I'm encouraging everybody around a woman to say, slow down. We don't need to do this now. We can do it later.
Don't just do something. Stand there.
Yeah. And so I did in my 40s. I was having such heavy periods. I used natural progesterone because my progesterone levels were so low. So I used a cream. So I would say that's valuable for a woman who's having periods, who's having problems in her 40s.
And are there some that are better than others because they're more natural, or?
They are, and that's what, I would only say, look up, find a doctor who is giving natural progesterone. It was a cream. It was because so many of the hormones we're taking are synthetic. And so you're really saying, bioidentical hormones are very popular. Finding something that's not been synthesized, synthetic, this is the big problem. But I wish I'd known all I know now, because I was a woman who took everything on board. I have a big vacuum cleaner. Anybody's sorrow, I bled for the world. And so I would be bleeding all the time because I was always taking on everybody's sorrow. If I had known to find boundaries and also to clear myself out of everybody's sorrow after all the work I did with people, I wouldn't have bled so much. So I've got women, if you're bleeding a lot, ask yourself, you have to have boundaries, or maybe stop what you're doing because you're overwhelmed with other people's emotions. And then I'll just say fibroids are another common problem for women. Every woman probably has a few before their menopause. But fibroids, the question I always ask of a woman with a fibroid, it's a benign tumor in the uterus that can cause heavy bleeding. I say to those women, who takes care of you? And she bursts into tears. She said, nobody's there for me. Now, that's not true, but she doesn't feel safe to let people take care of her. So when I ask women and men, do you find it easier to give than take? 75% will say yes. I always want to give because I don't trust letting someone in, because it's seen as a weakness. It's seen as vulnerability. It's seen that I may have to owe something. They want something back. So, these are all issues. And I understand, I hope this is covering it, because it's really saying this has got nothing to do with anybody else. This is our psyche, men and women, having an issue about receiving. How many of us, have problems with receiving?
And what I've heard so often from men is, I'm not stupid enough to be vulnerable again. Look at what happened last time. I'd never survive that again.
Yes. And, I could go into a lot of history where women carry much more ancestral history than men do, primarily because we have our eggs inside us once we're inside our mother. So all our eggs get marinated in our mother's belief systems and emotions, and all the way down the line. And so women take on ancestral issues much more commonly. And the stories I hear are, yes, he went off to war, he never came back, I had to bring up the children. And so it was no problem, no fault of his. But that's a common story of abandonment, not because of, someone going off with someone else. It's that fear of being left alone. And, we're back to that again. And no community. So that I want to share with, if I can just say, that's what I would ask women who are having periods. Once you move beyond that, your most powerful time is at the dark moon. I don't think I want to go into that fully, but I will. Let me just say, on the first day of the dark moon, for any woman who is not having periods, and that might be someone who's on the pill, do the same releasing. And this time I take a glass of water, I put my hands around the water, I infuse into that water everything I'm ready to let go of, and I pour it on Mother Earth. So you're doing something similar. Shall we go to perimenopause?
Yes, please.
Okay.
What kind of an invitation is that?
I know. This is a big one. Okay. Perimenopause is not the same as the time when you stop having your period, which on average is around 51. All right. It is a period of time. I want to say right up front, you do not stop having estrogen in your system. That was such a bad statement to make when the doctor on that program said it's because you don't have any more estrogen. I wanted to send her back to medical school and say, learn it properly, because that was so wrong. And it's also wrong. People often say, wow, it's as if God said, have estrogens, have hormones for 50 years and then become a dried out hag. And it's like, no. We have estrogen, we are juicy, we are not dried out after menopause. And that is a misnomer. And we are meant to live, my friend. People often say to me, oh, it's because we often died young. That's so untrue. We know humans were living 200, 300 years. So, it's not true that we are meant to die young. And that's why women were only given 50 years of hormones. That's so untrue. It's also a much bigger period. So here we are. I'm going to tell everybody that the perimenopause starts about 46 and ends at 56. So we're not talking about a 1 year. We're talking about 10 years of hell. Okay. But the prime reason is that in our early 40s, maybe 46, 47, early years of 40s are a time where a woman is in her power, her prime of her success. And I could call it her ego success. So the most important time for a woman is in those years to say, what have I become successful of? Building our ego, men and women at the same time, because men go through a male menopause. But it's those 40s, in our 40s, are really powerful years for us. And when we don't feel successful, then we start taking it out on everybody else. Because around 46, 47, this is the piece that we haven't mentioned, but there are 3 phases of a woman: virgin, mother, crone. They're similar in a man, but virgin, mother, crone are also found in the masculine. The mother phase is really strong in those years, probably around 20 to 46. But after 46, 47, that desire to mother everybody, to take care of someone, starts to wane. Because we're now moving into the phase of what we call the crone. And the crone energy is not about mothering individuals. It's about, now, what is the legacy I want to leave for the next 7 generations? What is it I see? How do I want to use my creativity, you could say, for the world, or for at least the next 7 generations of your family? It's the wise woman. It's the visionary. And the difference between her and the mother is that she doesn't actually have so much interest in taking care of people. So if you're in a relationship with someone who's in their late 40s and early 50s, you'll actually think, wow, they're pushing me away. They're not pushing you away, they're pushing away your desire to be nurtured. And that's when women say to me, well, I'm going to have a baby in my 50s. I go, you can have a baby whenever you like, but your psyche will not want to nurture that child as much as it would if you had your child in your 30s. And so in this period, and I think this is a very difficult phase because we're again not taught about it, once we stop, our ovaries stop producing estrogen, we then transfer our desire or our need for estrogen to our adrenal glands. And our adrenal glands are perfectly capable of producing estrogen, a slightly different type, but still producing. If we, however, have been stressed in our younger life, and we've been a workaholic or a doaholic, I mean, I can put myself in that phrase, we're always, what's the next thing I've got to do? Our adrenal glands are exhausted by the time we get to perimenopause, and therefore the ability to produce estrogen is reduced. And that's why we get perimenopausal symptoms. So what I say to all my young 40-year-olds, relax, 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 calm down, celebrate yourself. Because if you go into the perimenopause stressed, I'm not good enough, I've never done enough, I'm not, if we have all that language, our poor adrenal glands will have difficulty giving us help. The other place we get estrogen is in our fat, in our adipose tissue. So it's not uncommon for a woman to put on fat because it's one place that she then produces more estrogen and she becomes more settled in herself.
That's interesting, because what I'm hearing from you is the goodness, where what I'm hearing from society is how horrendous it is to be doing such a thing that's unacceptable on social media, etc., etc. Wow.
And I am not someone, as I said, I had a difficult perimenopause because I didn't know all of this. I wish I had. I seemed to learn. I got headaches. I got tired. I got nauseous. And one of the reasons, I remember being on the telephone call with someone and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go and be sick because it's like a migraine. And they said, don't worry, I'll be here when you come back. And I realized this is a problem. If the person I'm talking to doesn't realize I'm sick, I'm clearly not allowing myself time out to be tired. And I realized I was a workaholic. I was always there for everybody. I went to medical school, so I went to martyr school, always think of everybody else, always do for everybody else. And I know that the times when I couldn't get off the couch because my head hurt so much or I was aching was really my soul or the universe saying, we won't let you do this until you stop and you take time out for you and you celebrate who you are, not for what you haven't done in life.
And I have heard of so many women who have pushed through, is the term I've heard. You just have to push through it. Don't be so silly. Don't be so weak. push through it. It's a migraine. I will pop some pills. My doctor said all I need to do is take this, this, and this, which has got nothing to do with what's going on.
Yeah. It's you know, so I want to say that, so let me just talk about, there's a few other symptoms. So you can get achy, you know, again, joints can be affected. This headache, and only afterwards people said, oh yeah, I did have a headache. It's because the energy, now this is an energy that I want to talk about, this energy of creation, when we have a period, what's happening is that we have a strong connection to the physical world. So we bleed onto the world. It's a physical reaction. Once we stop having our periods, it's actually very hard to keep our feet on the ground because we don't have this physicality. So one of the reasons we also put on weight is to ground ourselves. So this is such an important time not to meditate out your body. Do everything to be in your body, be in nature. And be in nature just to enjoy yourself. So the headaches are an imbalance in the energy that rises up inside us. And it literally burns, causes us to burn. So part of the hot flushes are this rising energy. But it is also a parasympathetic response to stress. So if if we all think about it, when we get stressed, we go cold, we go tight, we have no blood in our extremities. And when we release that stress, we sweat, we get hot. And that's what a hot flush is. It's actually a parasympathetic response to the inner stress.
And
so it's not to be shut down. It's more of a symptom. I'll talk about what we could do. It's not to be shut down. It's a symptom of how stressed we are. And so what commonly happens, it's like having a train inside you that's constantly going, and you don't know how to switch that train off. And so many women have anxiety, have depression. They wake up and you feel like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. What am I anxious about? And you can't pinpoint what it is. And it's almost like a feeling of dread. Like, oh my God, something's going to happen, because you've been living in this post-traumatic stress place for so long that now your body is asking you to relax. You're literally so fired up you can't relax, and your body tries to get rid of that excess heat with the hot flashes. So what would I say is, first of all, find ways to relax. I ended up having, my body said, you're not going to do anything. I would spend times lying on the grass. I would spend times breathing out and holding my breath out, because it was the only way I could really stay solid on the earth. I learned what I call rooting exercises, which was to imagine I was sending my roots into Mother Earth and just staying there. So I became much more attuned to the earth and nature. And I really would say that's important. I actually ended up saying to people, I can't do this. I'm not going to be available for you, only because I had such bad headaches. But I needed to say, unload my diary, get rid of the projects. Now, did that mean I've never done anything since? No, I've written 3 books since. I'm very busy. I'm creative. But I don't waste time on things that I don't think are essential anymore. I had to become more effective with my energy, because it wasn't that I have less energy. Please, people say to me, oh yes, as you get older, you don't have as much energy. I'm swimming 3 times a week. I'm hiking. I am doing much more in my body than I ever did. My body is healthier. Different shape, I'll give everybody that, but it is healthier.
So it's managing the energy, it's managing the change, it's listening and nurturing and going with, rather than suppressing and pushing.
And I'm sorry, again, my 40-odd years of medicine says the body will win. And so I've always seen the bodies, as you know, the message of disease. I tell you, your body is not your enemy. So the hormones are not your enemy. Your body's failure to be able to get you out of bed is not your enemy. because the body will win. The body will say, I will not let you do this. That is so self-destructive. And when you know, if someone says to me, oh, well, I've got to do it, otherwise I won't be able to have money. Or it's like, I've seen too many women with cancer and the body says, I told you had to stop.
Mm.
You know, you thought that was so important. I mean, how many, I know I'm speaking to many people who I had breast cancer. You know, it was really because I was so busy helping everybody else and thinking that was my purpose. And my body said, no, we don't want you doing this anymore. So you may have to reassess what you're actually, you know, why you're doing it. Are you doing it from fear or love? Are you enjoying it, or are you driven by fear? If you're driven by fear, your adrenal glands are exhausted. So now let me just, again, HRT. I did not agree with the fact that we have no hormones. You've heard me say that. I do not agree that there was only one study that proved that HRT could cause breast cancer. Okay. I, however, never see that a HRT can cause the breast cancer. What you're hearing me say is HRT stimulates a part of our psyche that is prone to such a thing. And it's not your genes. You're not hearing me say that. But breast cancer is all about losing yourself. So I had lost myself in helping others. It's not the HRT that causes breast cancer. It's the mechanism inside us that's already fired up, that's stimulated by that. So I have no problem. As a doctor, I would put someone on HRT if they were having so many symptoms that they couldn't function. But you can understand, I'd be saying, and here's the things you need to do. I'll give you HRT for 2 years if that's what you want. But it's not solving the problem that will be there if once you've stopped the HRT, unless you change your lifestyle. Now, there's other things you can do, and I know women will Don Quay, and soy is purely estrogen. So women drinking a lot of soy milk, it's estrogen. Vitamin E is estrogen. There are different things that have high levels of estrogen. I've got someone who says, oh, but I feel so much better on the soy. Fantastic, but change your life. But recognize that when we have estrogen without progesterone, we have a higher incidence of problems actually coming. Estrogen needs to always be balanced with progesterone. That's what HRT does. So just taking the soy, I'm sorry, but you have actually an increased risk of causing problems if you're already fired up. I'm just saying breast cancer, ovarian cancers, other cancers that rely on estrogen, you are causing troubles.
It sounds like space is the key, rather than throwing solutions, eating, potioning, whatever it is. It's take the space.
Take the space. I just want to say on osteoporosis, men and women lose bone density for 5 years around this age, men and women. But then it balances out. The best way of preventing osteoporosis is doing something where your muscles are pulling against your bone, which is why I swim. I know that to be true. It is not walking because it doesn't do anything. Get the body toned up. You get into the gym, do something where your body is actually stimulated. And honestly, the more you're on this earth, the more you're enjoying being here, more creative, doing something, the stronger your bones become as well.
And I have heard so much about brain fog and trying to fight against brain fog. What's wrong with me? I'm losing my memory. I can't concentrate. I'm screwing up. Is this the end of my career? I'm going to let my family down, or, and so it goes on.
Brain fog is there, and it's asking to clear out your closets, clear out your filing cabinets. What are you trying to focus on? What matters? And it really is a case of clearing the energy. Again, I wouldn't say, I'm a homeopath. You can find homeopathic remedies, other remedies, But I'm always suspicious when you're taking a remedy that is another estrogen, because you're really, the more estrogen you put into your body, the less your adrenal glands will make, because they're basically saying, why should I make it? You've already put something in there.
Mm. Mm.
I know, as I said, I had a challenging perimenopause. I had the brain fog, but I realized that a lot of what was going on in my brain really wasn't needing to be sorted out. I needed
So
to rest.
let it go, clear it out, let it go, simplify.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because women are multitaskers. I can think 6 things at once. Do you need to?
Mm.
What we find is that we actually don't want to do 6 things at once. We want to focus on one thing.
Mm.
And I think a lot of that brain fog comes from around there. And again, we're not set up in a culture, because, as you say, people will say, well, you're obviously over the hill, you can't do this job. You're only in your early 50s or late 40s, maybe.
Mm.
You're not over it. It's that you're actually becoming more clear. And part of that crone energy I talk about is that you actually start to become much more insightful. You see through people's games. And that's why the wise people who, of the tribe or the family, were chosen from people who had gone through this. They were called the grandmothers or grandfathers. That had nothing to do with age or whether you had children. It's the fact you saw through all the crap, if I may say that. You didn't stand for anything. And so I think that many women, as you're going through the perimenopause, you're starting to see a truth, and that scares you, because you've been able to hide in all this fog beforehand.
One of the things that I've heard of so much that I haven't come across so much is the crone serving the man by looking at him, in him, and through him, and spotting the bullshit and naming it in a way that he can receive it and work through it and let it go. And this isn't criticism. This isn't manipulative. This, to me, sounds like purity, unconditional love. And my God, the number of men who I feel would be on their knees receiving such a blessing, given half a chance.
I agree with you, Kenny. So just to say 2 things, it isn't an age thing. I always want to make women know, you don't have to wait to this age, because every time that cycle I talk about, around the time of the new moon, around the time of our period, we are crones. So we go from virgin, mother, crone every month. So it's
those magical 3 days.
Yes, those magical 3 days.
We should be queuing up.
Yes.
So tell me the truth.
Yes, and I think that's what women get, why we go frustrated. So, tell the truth at that time. The crone energy, so I want to say I have a lot of very young crones around me, and I love it. They have trouble because nobody wants to hear what they have to say, and they get into all sorts of problems. And I know myself, people would hold up the cross, go away, Christine, because you're really saying, I see what I would almost be saying, why are you doing what you're doing when you have so much more potential? And I had to learn to keep my mouth shut, except if someone saw me for a session, and then I could tell them. That's why I do what I do. But, the crone energy has the eyes to see and the energy to bring about change. And what I know about the crone energy, this is the message I hear from her, is, I love you so much, I will not let you be less than you are. And that means she is the vulture, and I've been in tune with my own inner vulture. I will tear the meat off your bones because I love you so much, I will not let you be less than you are. And I feel that energy is pure love. Because if I'm mothering you, I'm allowing your issue to go on and on and on, and not telling, but if you ask me, I'm saying, do you really want the truth? Because I love you so much, I will not let you be less than you are. So stop doing what it is you're doing. I will not feed your addiction to your old patterns.
I can't collude with what I don't believe in.
Yeah.
With what's not.
I can't even, I won't even give it energy. And I think that's where, again, men and women can have this. It's so hard to see someone destroy themselves. and to know that they are building this wall of defense or stories around them. And it's like, I can't feed that. And I think as you go through the perimenopause, I know it is, it's harder and harder to keep your mouth shut, or it's harder and harder to be around people who are lying to themselves.
Mm.
And that's why I think a lot of women also feel the need to say, I can't be around you because I see you hurting yourself at that level and you're making that choice, so I have to pull away.
Mm.
But, I have to say to a woman, stop doing it. I love you so much. What are you doing? So it doesn't matter. It's that energy. And in every tradition I've read about and been around, it was always the grandmother energy that was chosen to be the spiritual leaders because only they knew what was worth fighting for.
Mm.
Only they knew what the future held. In other words, is this a short-term goal or will it serve the next 7 generations?
Mm.
And what I would love to see in our planet at this time is women stepping up at this level. It doesn't have to be old or young, but women stepping up and say, this is not serving the next 7 generations. Stop it now.
Mm.
Because it was the spiritual leaders who chose the political leaders or the military leaders. They could also fire them if they were not fulfilling what their spiritual leaders had seen as the vision. If they were not dedicating themselves to the bigger picture, they would fire them, get rid of them right away. And we need a lot of that now.
It's like the doing is the servant of the being.
Yeah. And I, unfortunately, as a woman, I would say I see so many women in so-called power who are mini men, who are not speaking from their womb. They're not serving. They're not working from the greater good. They're speaking from their throat chakra, and they have no truth inside them and no connection to their feminine. Mm. Because when women connect, as I talked about that second day connection, we connect to the creative energy of all life, of everything. So we are not just connected to the power, we're connected to something that is aligned to the rhythm of the universe. In other words, when something's not in rhythm, in harmony, it's a woman who needs to say, that's not in harmony with the goodness of everything. That's why women are so powerful, because we can tap into that energy to know what is the right rhythm. But when we're out of touch with our own rhythm, our own personal one, we haven't got a hope in so-and-so to get us anywhere. Mm. 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 So when a woman is intuitive, and I will say, I'm talking about women here, but when a woman, then her man should listen. And I know my man does. Mm. When I say we're not going to do this anymore, he doesn't go into oh, why not? He says, I trust you, I trust you. Mm. So when a woman is allowed that space, or when she gives herself that space, her intuition is really strong. Yeah.
Sacred relationships.
Yeah.
It sounds like self-aware
individuals
in sacred relationships.
And I think and yes, and when you say that, I want to say that my husband and I, we've been married 17 years, but our contract to each other, our commitment to each other was to hold each other to each other's path, my path. He said, I commit to holding you to your soul's path. And I said the same to him. Mm. And so I trust him when he says to me, don't do that, Christine. I know he's not talking to Christine Little Ego. I mean, it's Christine Little Ego that's not doing it, but he's talking to me and saying, you're walking away from your soul's path. And that's the relationship we have, is just what you say. We hold each other in respect and honor, and we honor each other and say that is not the highest quality of your soul's path that you're walking at this time. Mm. And we said, even if it means that we're not together at the end, if we decide to part, we are holding each other to each other's path. So even if it meant we were to separate.
That's love.
That's love.
That's unconditional
love. We're not committed to each other because of some marriage contract. We're committed to each other because of our love for each other's souls. Yeah.
10 years of perimenopause. I had no idea. I heard something about the menopause starts a year and a day after the last period or something.
Yeah. It's rubbish.
I mean, the only year and a day I've heard of is hand fasting.
Oh yeah, and no, the reason they say that, now I'm thinking about, we used to say that you couldn't get pregnant for 2 years after your last period if your last period was before the age of 50, and 1 year after the age of 50. If you have your menopause in your 40s, then it's 2 years. After 2 years, you cannot get pregnant. And after 50, it's 1 year. That's why that 1 year came out. It was all about pregnancy. And that's what, of course, because everything's focused. I mean, there are cultures who say that when a woman's is postmenopausal, she has no value to the world. I mean, that's terrible. But I also have women in their 60s, 70s, 80s who are still trying to do the mother thing. They're trying to be the grandmother. They're trying to, it's like, it's not that you shouldn't be a grandmother and love your children, but not the sense of mothering.
Yeah.
Because that's where that is not who you are. You can be the wise grandmother, which, and again, lots of cultures have the grandmother bringing up the grandchildren, but not from a place of, let me take care. Let me share my wisdom with you. That's what it should be.
My mother said to me that the best thing that ever happened to her was menopause. She had such terrible periods. And she's such a happy, healthy woman. It's wonderful. Meanwhile, as a child, as a boy, I was totally oblivious as to anything that might be going on. And is it a relief once it's all gone? Is it a new foundation?
I hear different. For myself, I didn't miss my periods. If I had actually known a little bit more, I might have enjoyed them more. But it is. And once I moved through that 56, 57, it was like, and now I'm, several years after that, I love it. And I've spoken to 90-year-old, 100-year-old women, and probably men would do the same. And I said, well, what makes you juicy? Because that's another issue about whether you become dried out. Women, our juiciness comes from our joy of connection, lighting ourselves up. And I'll say that, sexually, a man's role, if he's in a relationship with a woman, is to light her up. Because the more she's lit up, the more juicy she is, but also the more powerful she is to be able to bring about or create something new for both of them. So when a woman is not lit up sexually, she shouldn't have sex. That's what I'm saying. But I don't need to have sex to be lit up. I can enjoy myself. I can be excited by something. And I see that women who have some sort of passion, some sort of interest, which doesn't always have to involve people. It can be a garden, it can be, poetry, it can be do anything. Once we have that interest and we let that flow through us, we stay juicy all the time, sexually and not sexually. It's about that sensual energy being present.
So from what you're saying, there are two things. One is hold her safe.
Yeah.
And the other one is stimulate the juiciness.
Yeah.
And safe enough to be wild and free.
Yes. Yes.
To be creative.
Yes.
To be carefree.
Yeah. And I think sensuality is, as in any age, but in any relationship, knowing how to light someone up in a sensual way. Where do they feel sensually lit up? Whether it's with candlelight dinners or touch or words, doesn't always have to lead to sex. That lighting up, as soon as a woman's lit up as much, she's sharing that energy with you. I mean, that's part of the cauldron that she provides for you.
And I would say that's another difference between a man and a boy is a boy will need to sexualize and get it over with no intimacy, with no vulnerability, with no connection, with none of that dying to. where a man can connect and hold and take time and be vulnerable, and be very vulnerable, and be with whatever it is that might come up or might not come up, and enter into the flow and dance of things. And that's a different level.
And that's a different level. And maybe I just put this onto the recording here because, you know, sex at the, what we call the base chakra, at the base of the spine down in the loin, is just sex. It's just have a fix, you know, something that we need. But once, as you describe it, we take it to what we call the sacral chakra, is the intimacy, the relationship. So once we move it up from just this to, wow, I've got to be vulnerable now, into me, you see, you know, we're now into a totally different issue. And this is causing some challenges with young people. One thought they wanted sex, one wanted a relationship. You know, we're not communicating. Intercourse, we're not communicating. But once we take it up to the heart chakra, we're now making love. And now we're losing ourselves in the joy of someone else's heart. And that's another level of intimacy. And then, of course, we take it through to the full orgasm, which is very different from just an electrical orgasm. And why I wanted to say that is that as men get older, they get prostate issues. And the prostate issues are very much where it's not, again, expected. There are some cultures that never have any prostate disease. So prostate disease is very much something that is a Western culture. And it's a lot to do with that intimacy and that releasing, that when a man's energy is not able to go to the heart chakra or to the sacral chakra, the prostate gland, which is actually the nurturing gland, gets larger and larger. And then there can be cancer for the same reason. So a man's fear of being nurtured, of being intimate, to being vulnerable, may cause him to actually develop more of a problem with his prostate gland. So again, I wanted to add that in, is that's also part of this 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 40-year-old, really allowing ourselves as men to relax into that space.
It's interesting as you say that. I just picture certain types of men who I've known who've had this issue, the prostate issue, and just marrying up where they're coming from inside, their personality types, their needs, where they might be stuck or denying themselves.
And unfortunately, my experience, again, of prostate cancer is much more common in a very sensitive man who has been rejected. And they're often my interest has been that they're often in a prime position, military, police, doctor, you know, someone who has got this authority figure, but they've never had to be vulnerable. They've kind of hidden their vulnerability in a sort of charade of you know, professionalism, whatever it is.
Public power.
Public power, because they don't have to then become vulnerable.
And so vulnerability is power.
It's so I, you know, and many of them, I mean, I remember one man saying, you know, he'd run to his mother, you know, pick me up, and she'd kind of walked away. Many of these men have stories of being rejected by a female figure. And it's not them, but their sensitivity, their maybe need to merge, or their need to, you know, to be loved. So it's their love that's rejected. So there you go.
Wow, that's huge. That's so much information. I think I need to lie down.
Well, it's been a pleasure. We thought we wouldn't need all the time, but here we are.
Wow, we have. And the work that you do with women, because you run lots of different programs, trainings, as well as the books and things. Could you run through what you do?
Yes, I think the thing, I have two books primarily. One is called The Healing Power of the Sacred Woman, that really goes into why women have breasts, why women have sensitive breasts, i.e. there's no protection to them. Why did we hide the uterus inside? I mean, I really go into all the details from a physical and anatomical, but right into a mythology level, looking at the dragon energy. Why did women get disconnected, etc.? So I'm really proud of that book. And then out of that, I created the Handbook of Women's Mysteries, really as a book that women could go through, talk about a lot of the things that I've been talking about, but really look at, what does it mean to be a woman? What did my mother show me about being a woman? What do I think about pregnancy? I mean, things we never ask ourselves. And with that, I created a number of meditations so that you could visit your ancestors. I like visual imagery. But I also created that, as I'm coming to saying, as an audio book. So it's available as an audio book with the meditations. I also created it as a home study book where you could have the book, download it, but you could also do the meditations. And I also have a 6-month online training, which is actually pre-recorded, but it allows you to go with me through what I call 6 months, 6 gateways, and actually become deeper and deeper aware of yourself as a woman. And all of those are available on my website at christinepage.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for so much time. Decades of study and information and research and personal experience and God knows how many clients. Worth its weight in gold. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And can I just say, I have my own YouTube channel, but on there are again several small snippets of information for women and men to learn about what it is to be a woman going through all these different phases.
Great, Christine. Dr. Christine Page, thank you so very much.
Bless you, Kenny. Take care.